P.D. James's The Children of Men, published in 1992, is a haunting dystopian novel set in the year 2021, where humanity faces an unprecedented crisis. Infertility has swept across the globe, leaving the species without hope of survival. No child has been born for over 2 decades, and society grapples with despair, authoritarianism, and the collapse of meaning. At once a thriller, a philosophical meditation, and a political warning, James's novel explores how people confront the absence of future generations and what remains of humanity when continuity is severed. The novel's chilling vision feels even more resonant today, in an era marked by climate change, demographic anxieties, and debates over authoritarian control. The protagonist, Theo Ferren, is a historian at Oxford University. He is an isolated, cynical figure, intelligent but emotionally detached, a man scarred by the tragedies of his personal life. Years earlier, he accidentally caused the death of his infant daughter by running over her with his car, and his wife, Helena, never forgave him. Their marriage collapsed, leaving Theo emotionally numb. This tragic backstory frames his disillusionment. His personal sense of loss parallels the global infertility crisis. In many ways, Theo represents the modern intellectual, knowledgeable, skeptical, but unable to act decisively until drawn into crisis. The world James imagines is bleak yet orderly. England, like many nations, is ruled by a dictatorial figure, Zan Lipyat, who is Theo's cousin. Zan governs as the self-styled Warden of England, a paternalistic autocrat who provides stability at the cost of freedom. Under his regime, society persists through rigid control, propaganda, and harsh policies. Criminals are deported to penal colonies, immigrants are exploited for labor, and the elderly are encouraged toward state-assisted suicides known as the quietus. This chilling practice is portrayed as a dignified exit but is, in truth, a grim symbol of a society that has lost reverence for life. James's England is not in chaos but stagnation. The absence of children has eroded creativity, ambition, and joy. Schools stand abandoned, playgrounds overgrown, toys treated as rare artifacts. People continue their daily routines, working, consuming, entertaining themselves, but with a profound hollowness. Without a future generation to inherit the world, life feels futile. This atmosphere underscores the novel's central question: what gives meaning to human existence when legacy and posterity are stripped away? Theo's life reflects this societal malaise. He fills his time with academic pursuits and solitary walks but lacks passion or purpose. His role as narrator, detached, analytical, recording observations, mirrors his stance in life, more observer than participant. His relationship with Zan is distant but significant. Theo admires his cousin's charisma while remaining wary of his authoritarian tendencies. Zan, unlike Theo, embraces control and believes order is humanity's last comfort. In many ways, their dynamic reflects 2 paths societies can take in crisis: passive resignation or domineering control. The fragile stasis is interrupted when Theo is approached by a small dissident group known as the 5 Fishes. Led by a young woman named Julian, they oppose the Warden's rule and seek Theo's help as a mediator to reach Zan. The group includes Rolf, an ambitious and fiery character, Luke, a former priest burdened with doubts, Miriam, a midwife who has lost her profession's purpose, and Julian, who radiates quiet faith and hope. Each member represents a different strand of humanity's response to despair: anger, faith, service, and hope. Julian's presence in particular stirs something within Theo, challenging his detachment. The 5 Fishes protest against the quietus and the exploitation of immigrants, but what truly sets them apart is Julian herself. In a miraculous twist, Julian is pregnant, the first known pregnancy in over 25 years. This revelation, hidden at first from Theo, becomes the novel's turning point. The pregnancy represents not only biological renewal but the rebirth of meaning, faith, and human resilience. For James, whose writing is steeped in Christian themes, Julian's pregnancy echoes the nativity story, a miracle of hope in a barren world. Theo is reluctant at first to involve himself with the group. His cynicism and mistrust of political movements make him hesitant, and his relationship with Zan complicates matters. But Julian's sincerity draws him in, and slowly he becomes their ally. Through Theo's gradual shift from detached observer to committed protector, James explores the possibility of redemption even in a world without hope. Theo's journey reflects the broader theme of reawakening moral responsibility in an age of apathy. Zan, upon learning of dissent, proves ruthless. The warden embodies a Machiavellian pragmatism, seeing himself as the guardian of order but indifferent to individual suffering. When the Five Fishes protests escalate, the regime cracks down. This sparks the fugitives' desperate flight across England, with Theo joining them to protect Julian and her unborn child. The novel transitions into a tense pursuit narrative, filled with suspense, betrayal, and sacrifice. As they flee, the group fractures under pressure. Rolf's arrogance and hunger for power undermine their unity. He dreams of using Julian's child as political leverage to overthrow Zan and install himself as ruler. This selfish ambition contrasts with Julian's quiet faith and Theo's emerging sense of duty. James portrays political opportunism as corrosive, even when cloaked in the language of revolution. In contrast, true leadership and renewal come through humility, sacrifice, and care for life itself. Luke, the priest, emerges as a Christ-like figure, offering himself in protection of Julian and her unborn child. His faith in the divine nature of the pregnancy leads him to martyrdom when the group is cornered. Luke's death underscores the religious symbolism woven throughout the novel. Julian's child is not merely a genetic accident but a beacon of spiritual hope. James, a devout Anglican, infuses the story with theological resonance, suggesting that human survival depends not just on biology but on moral and spiritual renewal. Miriam, the midwife, plays a crucial maternal role, tending to Julian and preparing for the birth. Her presence highlights the human need for nurturing and care, even in despair. In a society that abandoned children, Miriam's vocation becomes vital again, embodying continuity between past and future. She represents the resilience of ordinary people, the quiet heroism that sustains life even when institutions fail. As danger closes in, Theo transforms. Once apathetic and guilt-ridden, he becomes Julian's protector, taking on responsibility not only for her safety but for the fragile possibility of human renewal she carries. His journey mirrors the possibility of human rebirth. Just as the world might gain a new child, Theo gains a new sense of purpose. In a novel steeped in despair, this personal transformation is as miraculous as the pregnancy itself. Eventually, betrayal from within the group, particularly Rolf's recklessness, leads to their capture. Yet Julian and Theo escape, pushing deeper into hiding. Their fugitive journey through England highlights the contrasts of the dying society: abandoned villages, silent playgrounds, and landscapes at once familiar and alien in their emptiness. The imagery is haunting echoes of a world designed for children but now eerily devoid of them. Julian finally gives birth in secret, with Theo and Miriam assisting. The child, a baby boy, emerges as a symbol of hope and possibility. James crafts the scene with deliberate echoes of the Nativity: secrecy, danger, a humble setting, and the awe of witnessing new life in a world convinced it was impossible. In this moment, the novel shifts from dystopian despair to tentative renewal. Life, against all odds, continues. The climactic confrontation occurs when Theo confronts Zan. The warden, aware of Julian's child, seeks to claim the infant as his own, to consolidate his rule by parading the miracle as a product of his governance. Theo and Zan, cousins once bound by family ties, now embody opposing visions of humanity's future: authoritarian control versus sacrificial guardianship. Their struggle culminates in Theo killing Zan to protect Julian and the child, an act that forces him into the role of reluctant leader. In the novel's haunting conclusion, Theo assumes the mantle of authority. With Zan dead, Theo dons the ceremonial symbols of the warden and holds the child, presenting him to society. The ending is ambiguous. Will Theo replicate Zan's authoritarianism, or will he guide England into renewal with compassion? James leaves this question unresolved, underscoring the tension between power and morality. What is certain is that the child represents humanity's second chance, fragile yet profound. Thematically, The Children of Men explores mortality, meaning, and the human response to extinction. James suggests that children provide more than biological continuity; they anchor our sense of purpose, morality, and responsibility. Without them, humanity becomes stagnant and self-indulgent. The novel critiques not only authoritarianism but also the apathy of liberal democracies that failed to sustain vitality in the face of crisis. Religious symbolism permeates the narrative. Julian's pregnancy recalls the Virgin Mary, and Luke's martyrdom echoes Christ's sacrifice. The novel frames hope as not merely scientific but transcendent, rooted in faith, humility, and sacrifice. Yet James avoids simplistic allegory. The story remains grounded in psychological realism and political critique. The interplay of faith and politics invites readers to consider what kind of renewal humanity requires: technological, spiritual, or both. The novel also resonates as a critique of consumerist, late capitalist society. Even amid extinction, people in James's England pursue entertainment, consumption, and comfort, numbing themselves to despair. The Quietus epitomizes this, a society so obsessed with order and dignity that it institutionalizes mass suicide. James warns against societies that value stability over vitality, comfort over renewal. For contemporary readers, The Children of Men feels eerily prescient. Though written in the early 1990s, its vision of demographic collapse, authoritarian stability, and ecological despair mirrors anxieties today: declining birth rates in many nations, climate change threatening the future, and populist leaders promising order. James's novel forces us to confront uncomfortable questions. What happens if humanity loses belief in the future? What sacrifices are we willing to make to preserve meaning? Ultimately, The Children of Men endures because it balances despair with the possibility of redemption. Julian's child does not erase suffering or guarantee salvation, but it restores the possibility of tomorrow. Theo's transformation demonstrates that even in a dying world, individuals can rediscover responsibility and courage. For modern audiences facing crises of climate, politics, and inequality, James's message resonates. Hope is fragile, but it demands protection, and from it, humanity can begin again. Let us know in the comments what books you'd like to see us summarize next. Happy learning. We will see you in the next book summary.